I decided to dedicate another class to this volume of Igros Kodesh that exists between the Rebbe and the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin. To me, it's very, very, very fascinating. Let me begin with this, okay? I want you to see the date. The date is Chodal Tevis Tafresh Tzaddik Gimel, the beginning of 1933. As I mentioned to you in several of the discussions that we had, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe Bechlal was one of those people who, like all big tzaddikim, didn't take very good care of his guf. He pushed himself a lot, and then of course his experiences were extreme, right? The beatings that he took, the stress that he carried in Russia was unbelievable. When he came out of Russia, the Frierdiker Rebbe came from Russia, he looked beautiful, he looked like a king. But his health had been deteriorated from all the suffering, and in 1933 the Frierdiker Rebbe began to show signs of paralysis, okay? I don't know how this works out, but in the book, there's a book called Early Years. Have you seen the book Early Years? You know about the book Early Years? It's a very good book. It's interesting and it's well researched. It has both milas. It's readable and it's also very, very sound. They were very careful not to include in the book anything that they couldn't find a really reliable source for. One of the things that you have in that book, I don't know exactly how it works out because the book really ends by the Rebbe's wedding, is that the Rebbe was deeply involved in the Frierdiker Rebbe's healthcare. The Frierdiker Rebbe started showing signs of paralysis in 1933, and for a while his health was deteriorating rapidly, and they didn't know what to do. They couldn't even diagnose him, didn't know what was wrong, didn't know what the solution was, and the Rebbe was getting sicker and sicker. At some point they found a doctor in Paris, a Jewish guy, who later moved to London, and he survived the Holocaust, he was involved in what you and I would call alternative medicine. And he started to treat the Frierdiker Rebbe based on the principles of diet and exercise. That's when the Rebbe's health care, the Frierdiker Rebbe's medical condition turned around. But one of the things that's a part of that story is the degree to which our Rebbe was involved in the Frierdiker Rebbe's health. The Frierdiker Rebbe traveled all over Europe. I mean, today there's something called the European Union, which in the last few days, because of my own Mishigassen, I've been studying a little bit. That's called the EU, the European Union. Even, this is new, the EU, right? I have never been to Europe. I mean, I've been to Europe, but I haven't traveled from place to place in Europe. To go from country to country in Europe is, today, rather easy. I don't even know if you need a passport. I don't know. If you're a European, you can help me. But to go from country to country to country, it's not hard. But even in the 1930s, Europe is very small. And to go from country to country, even if there's borders, most of them, it's not so hard to get through. The Frierdiker Rebbe traveled all over Europe for medical purposes. The Rebbe was living either in Germany or in France, mostly in France. The Frierdiker Rebbe was wherever he was, and the Rebbe would meet the previous Rebbe each time he traveled to a doctor. It became, the Frierdiker Rebbe became so dependent upon the Rebbe, he literally would not see a doctor without the Rebbe, even if it required the Rebbe to go to a different country. So here's a very interesting letter.
But why only like the Rebbe was in charge and not like the other
children?
Yeah.
The answer to that question, honestly, is I have no idea. B'derech hateva, the down-to-earth reason is, the Rebbe was a very smart man, and he had a huge understanding of science and medicine. And it made sense that the Rebbe would be the one who would oversee the Frierdiker Rebbe's healthcare because he understood it. I mean, it helped that he cared a lot, right? The Rebbe cared a lot about the Frierdiker Rebbe, right? So here's a letter. The date is Motzai Shabbos Kodesh Shmais, Chavdal Tevis Reish Tzaddik Gimel, Berlin. Biti hayakara v'achaviva moroschaya mushke tichya. I would imagine that the Rebbe Rayatz is in Berlin, the Rebbe, our Rebbe, is already living in Paris. And I read, Title Hashem b'dachayim v'shalom k'lachai, thank Hashem for my health and my life until now. Dein Leben wollen schreiben, your great desire to write to me, meaning you haven't written a letter but you want to write to me, hab ich mit Freude gehört, this is Yiddish that no one speaks anymore, hab ich mit Freude gehört von dein lieben Mann, I heard with joy from your beloved husband, Chasneinu Ayaka Sheyichya, our precious son-in-law Sheyichya. Es geht dir, as du schreibst. There's a rumor that you're writing a letter. Wo halt's das? Where's it holding? In other words, the Frierdiker was being a little cynical, the Rebbetzin we're not the world's greatest writers. And again, I strongly believe, after much thought, and I probably ran this by some people, the Frierdiker Rebbe asks you for a letter and you don't write. Doesn't make sense. The pshat has to be that the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin treated the Frierdiker Rebbe like a father, but also like a Rebbe, and there's a bit of a conflict there, or a big conflict there, you know? You could sit on a Friday night after a meal with your father and make jokes. But if your father's the Rebbe, there's no jokes. He's still your father, and you still have that intimate relationship, but there's different rules. So the Rebbe writes to his daughter, your husband told me that you're in the process of writing a letter. So how's it going? And of course, the Rebbetzin is thinking about every word. Next paragraph. Ba ishech chasneinu harav Nachum Mendel sheyichya. No, by ishech chasneinu harav Mendel. By your husband, our son-in-law, the Rebbe, hat sich entwickelt große wirtschaftlich Kenntnissen. He's showing a great organizational skill. Besorgt mich mit alles. The Frierdiker Rebbe was seeing a doctor in Berlin, surprisingly. He's providing me with everything I need. Now here's the words I want you to read. Sein Aufmerksamkeit ist von mir nicht Kenayes nicht. His attention to detail, his concern for me is not a surprise. But as they feel is shame to feel. The degree to which the Rebbe, your husband, my son, is looking after me is a little too much. Nicht wie a treue Redim, nor wie a gute Tochter. You understand Yiddish? He's not looking after me like a loyal son-in-law. He's looking after me like a good daughter. The Rebbe is writing this to his daughter about the Rebbe, and he's saying, the Rebbe looks after me with such attention. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes to the Rebbetzin that the Rebbe is looking after him with such attention that it's like a daughter, not like a son-in-law. Ich bin sehr zufrieden von seiner Bekanntschaft mit allen Professoren und Doktoren als Menschheit. I'm very happy with his getting to know the professors and the doctors on a human level. Mir soll keinmal nicht davon alles sehr professionieren. Nobody should ever need their professions. Not alles Menschen is a gewisse Interesse, but as human beings it has a particular interest. And the fact that the Rebbe, our Rebbe, is socially gaining a relationship with the Frierdiker Rebbe's doctors was very, very helpful. Okay, and then the Rebbe finishes, Ich bleib warten auf dem angesagten Brief, send dein Handschrift. I remain anticipating the letter that you're going to write me. I want to see your handwriting and had a good sent to hear good regards. And then he finishes, Sei gesund, bitte Eikar Avicha Evcha Blik V'Varchach. This is how the letter ends. But it's a letter by the Frierdiker Rebbe's healthcare. Now, next letter. This is dated, this goes back earlier, okay? This is dated Chof Hei Ode Tafresh Tzadik. It's the Rebbetzins 29th birthday. The Rebbetzin was born Tafresh Samach Aleph, 1901. This is 1930. Heint is dem lichtigen süßen Tag. Today is the illuminated sweet day for uns allen, for all of us. Dem Tag von deine Imnenius mit viel Glück ad 120 Shana. Today is your birthday. Till 120 years. Benchich dir liebe Tayere Tochter mein, I'm giving you a bracha, my beloved, precious daughter. As Hashem Yisbarach soll dir geben lange gute, freiliche, gesunde, glückliche Jahren. Hashem should give you long, good, happy, healthy, fortunate years. Im Ishech chasni yekiri haramamshichi, with your husband, my precious son-in-law, the Rebbe. Hashem Yisbarach soll mamala sein alle deine gute und kluge bakashes. Hashem should fulfill all your good and smart requests, was du betst by Hashem Yisbarach, that you're asking from Hashem. Hashem Yisbarach soll euch geben. Hashem should give you a guten, edlen, glücklichen Leben. Hashem should give you a good, pure, fortunate life. Ihr sollt sein gebencht, hier Kinderlach, listen. Ihr sollt sein gebencht mit gute, gesunde, kluge, edle Kinder. This is an occasion when the Frierdiker gives me bracha for children. You should be blessed with good, refined, with good, healthy, smart, refined children. They were married at this point a little more than a year. You should be blessed with good parnasa. Sein beglicht in dem grundigen idischen Weg. You should be fortunate in the foundational Jewish way. Mir alle sollen sehen in euch. We should all see in you a sach vergnügen, much pleasure in the alle gute Sachen and all things that are good. It soll sehen in uns, and you should see in us, the Friedrich writes to the Rebbetzin, a full of vergnügen, much pleasure. Ira alle Kinder tayeri, all of you precious children, mit eure Families sheyichu, with your families sheyichu, sollt weiter ziehen die goldene Kette, you should continue drawing the golden chain, shall sheles yachas Yisrael tifarte v'hadri, the chain of the Jewish continuity, its beauty and its grandeur. Es soll verstarkt werden dem Lubavitcher Odell. He's writing to his daughter. There should be a strengthening of the Lubavitcher ideology. Die richtige, schöne, edle Gefühlen bei dem Zweiten. The correct, beautiful, refined feelings by somebody else. Tayr halten Torah tmima, to hold precious the pure Torah, Torah v'yiras shamayim and Chasidus. Torah, fear of God and Chasidus. Umizol zeiche sein, we should all merit, as if uns alle min soll leichten, and all of us should shine, that the heilig is chus, the holy merit von Shalkvei Kedushas Aviseinu, Rabbeinu, Akadoshim, of our holy fathers, the Rabbeim. Then, of course, the next paragraph he's complaining about not getting any letters, and here's the bottom of the page. Tochter Tayere, my precious daughter. Alles in the Welt hat a grenze, everything in the world has a limit. A gavul, a hefsek, it's limited and it has an end. Eltern's ava pnimis, parents' inner love to their children is built in Magbas, has no limits. Dem Benken is unbegrenzt, my longing to see you has no limit. Hashem Yisbarach soll uns helfen, sehen sich Gesundheit and feel nachas begur. Hashem should help, we should meet healthily with much nachas, physically and spiritually. Now, one more letter I'm going to read, and then I'm going to talk about something a little bit different. This letter is from 1935. Be'ezach Hashem, with Hashem's help, durch der Arbeit und Interesse, through the work and interest, me'ishech hanichbad, from your honorable husband, chasni yegiri v'chavivi harav sheyichye, my precious son-in-law, harav sheyichye, vet in gechen gedruckt werden, we will quickly be publishing a sehr wichtige journal, a very important journal, mit dem Nomen Hatomim, and the Friedrich writes out the Nekudas, Patach Hei Komets Tov, Chirik under the Mem. Hatomim, the magazine Hatomim. Redaktieren auf Papier werden sein andere. The official editors are going to be other people. Aber die ganze Arbeit is seine. The whole work of the Tomim belongs to the Rebbe. Now here it goes, this is cute. Oh mein Hara, Gor, a wichtiger junger Mann. The Friedrich was writing to the Rebbetzin about the Rebbe. Kenai Nahara, he's a very, very, very special person. Hashem Yisbarach, Zolach Baglikim Bagor, Hashem should give you brachas Bagor. Okay, that's one final letter. Now, I want to change subjects just a little bit. I hope I don't confuse myself, but I want to change subjects. Okay, I'm doing this volume of Igros Kodesh. This volume of letters is mostly letters from the Friedrich Rebbe to the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin. However, in this volume, there are in a number of places letters from the Rebbe to the Friedrich Rebbe. Okay? Now, I intend, I didn't have a chance, I intend to go, I have the book right here, okay? I intend to go through this volume and prepare all of the letters that the Rebbe wrote to the Friedrich Rebbe that are included in this book, okay? But I'm just going to read you two letters from our Rebbe, which he wrote to the Friedrich Rebbe, that made their way into this volume. Here we go. The letter is dated 1930. Chai Shvat Tofresh Tzadik. This is a letter from the Rebbe to the Friedrich Rebbe. Hineni Oiver, I am passing over le'inyan she'eni shel tayin klal, to a subject which doesn't give me any pleasure at all. Aval loy uchal lehis apek melichtave. The Rebbe is writing to Friedrich Rebbe. I can't hold this, I have to write to you. V'gam enli kol reshus lehis apek. I have no permission to hold myself back, because it's b'shailas b'kuach nefesh. It's a question of life and death. The Rebbe is writing to Friedrich Rebbe There's an issue that I really don't want to bring to your attention because I don't want to cause you any pain, but I have to because it's life and death. V'tikvasi, I hope, kishiyadineni b'mkemi ani, when the Rebbe will judge me, the Rebbe writes, where I am, lo yakben al kos vizeh, you're not going to be upset. The Rebbe writes, the Rebbe, that I'm writing this to you. Mehoira yichu, the Rebbe is writing to the Rebbe about his parents in Russia. From my parents, that means Rebbe Leivik and the Rebbe Chana. V'chein midedi harav Shmuel Shich, and my uncle Reb Shmuel. Mekabel ani mechtavim, I'm getting letters. V'hine hamatzav sham oya v'neda, the condition in Russia is terrible. You have to understand the Rebbe's thinking. The Rebbe never wants to cause the Rebbe any agmas nefesh. But the Rebbe writes to his father and says, I'm sorry I'm writing this, but I have no choice because it's pashat a matter of life and death. Basar kasher ein, there's no kosher meat. Beis hatfilas sasmu, the mikveh they closed. Beis hakneses lahavdul sagru, the shul was also locked up. V'chulu v'chulu v'chulu. Me'emtze kayet ha'avar, in the middle of last summer, ein misham schirus, there's no salary. V'ha'ikir v'ha'ela al kulana, the most important thing, the Rebbe is writing about his father. Shebederach hateva, in the natural way, ein royim oisais l'shinoi hamatzav sham, there is no indications that the condition will there improve, l'toy for better, ba'aset hakarev, in the near future. V'lama yikavu b'yeshiva sham. What is the point of to sit in Russia and hope and wait for things to improve? Each day is worse than the next. Every single day, the conditions of their lives, the Rebbe is writing to the previous Rebbe about his parents, is getting work. It's impossible to take it anymore. And as far as leaving Russia is concerned, the Rebbe writes, the possibility to leave gets every day harder than the day before, every week harder than the year before. So the Rebbe writes, my parents and my uncle are asking from the Frierdiker Rebbe. If there was any kind of possibility to leave Russia, they would do it. Misratzim hayu lu haisa rabbonos bezalian aleph bezeir anpen limo dokiyetze bezebad zabris v'kanad v'chulu. If they would get any kind of job outside of Russia, they would take it and they would leave. V'ha'im b'sh'as reifachas v'shalom. If in a time of a fire, God forbid, v'atzolas nefoshes, and we have to save lives. Mashkichem al haseder v'kovid. You have to worry about the appropriate order and what's more honorable. Ve'eze eitza trufa acheres yesh lehem b'matzavim. What other kind of solution? Meaning, the Rebbe is writing to Frierdiker Rebbe, my father is a goan olam. He'll take out a bonus and a shtetl. He just needs to get out of Russia. And the Rebbe is informing the Frierdiker Rebbe of this and sort of begging him, you have to help my parents. Eini chafetz laharich. I don't want to elaborate. And to give more pain to the Frierdiker Rebbe, by including more details of the condition. Far more than I've stated explicitly, in the words that I did write, move from Rebbe and the Rebbe can understand from what's between the lines. You don't have to think too much. Let's say to imagine the voice of those who were sighing and shouting, mitigras yad kosher, from the burdens of a hard hand, be'ein miflat shamimen, there's no way to save yourself from it, ubishayla yuma, and the rhetorical question remains, the awesome question remains, eich yavi ezri, where's my help going to come from? Ubeyachad im chayzik hachefetz b'kol yom. And along with the strong desire each day, to receive letters from my parents and my uncle, harayila nefeles, al atzmi, I guess, b'chol pam upam b'kabli mechtavi. As much as I want to get their mail, every time a letter arrives, Rebbe says, I'm afraid to open it. Before I open the envelope and read the letter, I'm afraid. What's it going to say? Even though I understand myself, they want to give me only good news. So the Rebbe says, I'm asking a request from the Friedrich about my soul. The Rebbe should do what he can by himself. I guess Oizrav Kechola Efsheri Loi, in everything the Rebbe can do, Bavos Hanal Lidei Ma'aseh Paltiel, to help my parents. And I'm hoping for things to be improved and become better. We all know the end of the story. This is 1930, and the Rebbe is writing to the Friedrich Rebbe about the condition of his parents. This is a very poignant letter, where he's begging the Friedrich Rebbe, do what you can to help. The bottom line, I think Reb Shmuel got out of Russia, but I'm not sure. The Rebbe's parents did not get out of Russia. The rest of that story we know, right? The Rebbe's father was arrested, sent away. He died. He passed away at 64 years old. The Rebbe's father was such a strong man. He should have lived 100 years. They destroyed him. And this is a letter from the Rebbe to the Friedrich Rebbe begging, please help me. Now one more letter. I got one more letter that I have. Otherwise I'm out of material here. This is interesting. Okay, I've already mentioned this to you, that when the Rebbe writes the Friedrich Rebbe, there's a humility. He's trying to hide, really. The Friedrich Rebbe asks him, how's your learning? And the Rebbe answers, I'm not learning so good. It's not going so well, you know. The Rebbe asks the Friedrich Rebbe all kinds of questions. And at one point, the Friedrich Rebbe starts to complain. The Friedrich Rebbe starts to complain to the Rebbe, I'm giving you all this material. Who is it for? You know, no one's reading it. No one's interested in it. There's a letter where the Rebbe writes, the Friedrich Rebbe writes to the Rebbe, the only person interested in this is you. And the Rebbe keeps on demanding from the Friedrich Rebbe. So there's a letter someplace in this book, which I didn't find now, where the Rebbe writes to the Friedrich Rebbe, Mir felt asach, I'm missing a lot. Mir felt God asach, I'm missing an awful lot. Special Vasarum Chasidus is especially what's around Chasidus. I want to read you a letter. Dated Shvat Tafresh Tadakaf, 1931. It's 4 lines, and the Rebbe is writing to the Friedrich Rebbe. Our Rebbe is writing to the Friedrich Rebbe. He had asked the Friedrich Rebbe for a bracha for success in learning and understanding Chasidus. So the Friedrich Rebbe obviously asked the Rebbe, what do you mean you need a bracha for learning and understanding Chasidus? So the Rebbe writes back, Masha bekashti bracha. Our Rebbe is writing to the Friedrich Rebbe. This that I asked for a bracha, ba'asagas teres adach, in order to understand Chasidus, his atzmus ita v'chulu, to become one with the Chasidus that I learned. So the Rebbe writes, Hurak mipnei shemishteikik ani lozeh. I'm asking for a bracha to understand Chasidus. I'm asking for a bracha to have one Chasidus because I very, very much want this. I want that Chasidus, I should learn and understand Chasidus and become one with it. V'kosvi l'keik v'dishasei, b'koshas brachazu. And the reason I wrote to the Rebbe, to the Friedrich Rebbe, asking for a bracha in this area, ki ma'amin anoichi, because I believe, shem yachbetz bezeh, mikerev, be'emes, mikerev alev amek, because I believe that if the Friedrich Rebbe truly desired to give me such a bracha, harei betor bracha, betor tefillah, the Rebbe is writing, either the Rebbe, the Friedrich Rebbe could give me a bracha, or the Friedrich can make a tefillah, that the Friedrich Rebbe should be able to have an effect l'mayla, sheyikumu kol devarim elu bi b'payil mamish, that all of these things should be fulfilled in me actually, lamata, in this world. Do you understand what I'm reading or not? The Rebbe is, when this letter is written, 28, he was almost 29 years old. Who the Rebbe is, we understand. Right? The greatness of the Rebbe in Torah, the greatness of the Rebbe in Chassidus. And he's writing to his father-in-law, who happens to be his Rebbe. So I'm asking you to give me a bracha or tefillah. I don't know, whatever you have to do. But I feel like I lack an ability to understand and become one with the Chassidus that I'm learning. And I further feel that if you would try hard enough with the Friedrich Rebbe, my ruchniisdike condition would improve. So you're reading a letter from a Rebbe to a Rebbe, where the Rebbe, the son-in-law, is writing to the Rebbe, the father-in-law, and he's basically saying, help me get closer to the Eibishter. This is a letter from the Rebbe to the Frierdiker Rebbe. Help me get closer to the Eibishter. How are you going to help me go to the Eibishter? Give me brachas. Say tefillas for me. That the Chassidus that I learned should pile them. I just want to read the last line a second time because it's just so interesting. Maimin Anoichi, the Rebbe writes, I believe that if the Frierdiker Rebbe would truly desire this for me, either as a bracha or as a tefillah, that the Rebbe will be able to affect on high. Mamish, all of these things should happen to me actually. Lamata than here in this world. Does it help me be a better Yid? It's so interesting. It's so interesting. The Rebbe had problems, huh? The Rebbe had problems, huh? We wish we had the Rebbe's problems. There's another letter in here. I doubt I'm going to find it. Okay, here's a letter. This is a letter. This is again a letter written by the Rebbe to the Frierdiker Rebbe. Okay, this is our Rebbe, also writing to the Frierdiker Rebbe. The letter from the Frierdiker Rebbe from Chadal the Chedesh the 24th of the last month, Higyani, I got it. And from the depths of my heart, I will thank the Rebbe Al Michtav Amatani Yikarlu for this precious gift. The Rebbe used to ask the Frierdiker Rebbe questions. The Frierdiker was a busy man. The Frierdiker Rebbe liked to answer the Rebbe in long, involved letters. So the Rebbe asked the Frierdiker Rebbe some questions, the Rebbe answered the questions, and the Rebbe saying thank you. And in an appropriate time, an auspicious time, I'm going to take the chutzpah, whether there's a need for me to make this request, or if the request will be helpful. The Rebbe says, I'm sending my double request, and I'm presenting it to the Frierdiker Rebbe. My hope strengthens me. Hashem izman lizman, that going forward in the future, from time to time, Yichabdeni v'ya'angeni, the Frierdiker Rebbe will continue to honor me and to give me pleasure. B'michtavim k'may elu, in such letters. And now here's the part that I wanted you to read. I told this to you before orally, and I'm reading it inside. Harbe, this the Rebbe writes to the Frierdiker Rebbe, Harbe yediyas chasedim li, I am missing much information. Ubanageya tzuvarum von Chasidus, especially what touches what's around Chasidus. V'divrei hayamim shalah, the history of Chasidus. In Pirushe, badaituk befrat. In other words, the history is one thing, the history plus the meaning of the history is another. Therefore, kametzei shalah, like finding great treasure, hidden sameach, it gives me great joy. I'll call yediyah ve'inyan, any information, any ideas, shenitaisiv li bazad, that the Frierdiker Rebbe can give to me to give me more understanding of the stories of Chasidus, the history of Chasidus, and what it all means. Now comes a rather famous issue. Es apak le'uchal, I cannot hold myself back. Milevakish taste v'zbir, from asking the Frierdiker Rebbe for more explanation. Al mashahuk shalizeh mekfara, on a question which I've had for a long time. Bishami oimrim v'chayzim v'eim, that Chassidim say it again and again. Quote, by Chabad, halpanish from kemetzim v'chulu, Chabad does not hold of miracles, etc., etc. Uke'ein zeh, and along the same lines, masasi gam b'michtek feik d'shasi zeh, I found in the letter of the Frierdiker Rebbe that Chabad is not into miracles. Umoinim es atzmo miladaba bazeh, people are afraid to talk about this. V'gam mashtika masavadar b'chulu, if ever you ask the question, people tell you, Shad, don't talk about it. The Rebbe says to the Frierdiker Rebbe, what's this business Chabad doesn't hold of miracles? And the Rebbe says, if you're talking about the earlier generations, they didn't need miracles. Their minds and hearts were pure. Nowadays, and by the way, this letter is over 90 years old, because of the difficulties of the times, our hearts are stuffed. We're very involved in physical things. Begashmias kol inyan. In everything we're involved, we see only the gashmias of it. The average person doesn't feel an upliftedness and a refinement and upliftedness in his neshama. Says the Rebbe. if a person is grub, right, the person is very, very worldly. A person who's very materially preoccupied, teaching him an idea in philosophy is not very helpful. It's not going to reach him, it's not going to touch him. S is too edel, the ideas are too pure, of the mit on him to begin with this. So the Rebbe says in the olden days Chabad didn't need miracles. Today we must have miracles. On the other hand, miracles. V'sipur niflois atzadikim, and telling the stories of the wonders of tzadikim. That's Paltiel, Rebbe benefesh. Human nature is, you tell a story of a miracle, lifts you up. Yitzir v'ratzein l'nayir es atzmei. When you hear stories of miracles of tzadikim, it creates in the person the desire to go out and to shake off b'miktas a little bit. Me'agashmias v'cholu, from one's involvement in gashmias. It moves even the lowly spirit, or even a person in a low condition. And therefore the Rebbe writes, I don't understand why we have this shita of opposing miracles. I'm of the opinion, says the Rebbe, that telling stories of miracles and having miracles happen would be very beneficial. So what happens is the Rebbe writes aside to the Frierdiker Rebbe, and the Frierdiker Rebbe writes back explaining to him why we don't have miracles, why miracles are not Iker and Chabad. But the Rebbe seems to have held his position. The Rebbe seems to have maintained his position that nowadays we need to have miracles. Okay, I'm going to stop.